Chapter 8: India's Great Salt Range. 1. The Mountains of the Punjab, Historical Significance. Between two great rivers, the Indus and the Jhelum, a mountain range rises from the earth like a jagged, sun-scorched spine. This is the Great Salt Range of the Punjab. And it is not just a place, it is a legend. For over 2,000 years, empires have risen and fallen based on what lies inside these mountains, a storehouse of white crystals so vast, so ancient, so pure, that it shaped the fate of entire civilizations. The Romans knew of it. The great writer Pliny called it a place where the very earth was made of salt, a mountain of mineral wealth so hard and enduring it rivaled marble. But the story that truly put these mountains on the map begins with a tired army. In 326 BCE, Alexander the Great's forces had just fought one of the bloodiest battles of his campaign. Exhausted, depleted, the soldiers needed rest, and so did their horses. The animals wandered to the base of the rocky cliffs and began to lick. Not water, not mud, salt. The soldiers looked closer and realized the mountain itself was made of it. From that moment on, the Salt Range became a prize. The Mughal Emperors claimed it as a royal possession. The Sikh Empire used its wealth to fund one of the most powerful armies in South Asia. And when the British arrived, they saw an industrial gold mine. They built customs barriers across the land, controlling who could move salt and who could not, squeezing every possible tax from the mineral's flow. Step outside these mountains, and you feel the brutal heat, the dry, scorching air of the desert, the sharp smell of parched earth. But step inside, into the shadows of the canyons, and the temperature drops, and the walls begin to glow. Pink, white, deep crimson. The Salt Range was never just geology, it was a geopolitical battlefield, a source of power that shaped the movement of caravans along the Silk Road, that built forts and palaces and mosques, a silent, crystalline witness to the rise and fall of empires. 2. The Khewra Glen, a view into the Mayo Mines. The road to the mines is not easy. A narrow, twisting path carved through rugged, sun-blasted rock, reddish-purple stone on every side, dry heat pressing down from above. Nothing here hints at what waits at the end. And then, you arrive. The mouth of the Mayo Mines opens before you, a dark archway cut into the mountainside, named for a British viceroy who opened it to the modern world in 1872. You step inside, and the heat vanishes, instantly, completely, replaced by a cool, dry stillness, an air so clean and ancient it feels almost thin, a faint, sharp mineral scent, like breathing stone. Your eyes adjust, and what you see takes your breath away. The mine opens into an enormous underground chamber. The ceiling soars overhead, 100 feet or more above the ground. Massive pillars of solid salt rise from the floor to hold the mountain up, each one shimmering, translucent, striated with bands of color laid down over 500 million years. These are not just supports, they are monuments. The walls are alive with color, ribbons of white, bands of soft pink, veins of deep iron-rich red, layer after layer, the frozen record of an ancient sea. Hold a light against the salt, and the walls glow from within, as if the mountain itself were made of frozen light. Deeper still, in the quietest, darkest recesses of the mine, there are pools, underground reservoirs, so saturated with salt that the water is perfectly, eerily still. Look down into them, and you see the ceiling above you, the flickering lamps, the vaulted salt walls, reflected with such perfect clarity that you cannot tell where the water ends and the air begins. A mirror made of brine, suspended in the dark. The Mayo Mines are not just a mine, they are a cathedral carved by nature over millennia and decorated by the hands of the men who worked here with tiny mosques and sculptures, all built from the living salt.
Even in the deepest dark, beauty found a way in.
3. Fossiliferous strata, Carboniferous and Jurassic clues. The Salt Range is not just a mountain. It is a library, a stone library, written over hundreds of millions of years, layer by layer, page by page. And if you know how to read it, it tells a story that stretches back to the very dawn of complex life on Earth. The lowest layers of the range hold the oldest pages. 300 million years ago, this land was not a mountain at all. It was the floor of a warm, shallow sea, teeming with life. Primitive creatures, small shelled organisms that lived and died on the seabed in vast numbers. Their shells are still here, buried in dark, oil-rich shale, pressed between layers of ancient mud. Tiny, delicate structures, perfectly preserved by the salt that surrounded them. To hold one of these fossils in your hand is to hold a piece of a world that vanished 3 centuries before the dinosaurs even existed. Now climb higher. The story changes, the layers shift, the rock lightens, and a new era begins to appear in the stone. The age of the great reptiles. In the upper reaches of the range, thick limestone and sandstone hold a different kind of fossil. Coiled shells, elegant spirals, sometimes the size of a dinner plate, each one a creature that ruled the seas over 200 million years ago. Break open a piece of this ancient limestone in the right place, and the inside gleams. Translucent chambers, calcified walls, catching the light like a piece of prehistoric jewelry. These coiled shells are time markers. They allow scientists to date the layers of the mountain, to build a timeline not just of the salt, but of the entire region. And here is the remarkable paradox. Salt, in most places, destroys organic matter. It is too harsh, too aggressive, too hungry for moisture. But here, in the Salt Range, it did the opposite. It preserved the world around it, locked the fossils in place, protected them from the slow erosion of millennia. The Great Salt Range is not just a mountain of mineral wealth, it is a cemetery of vanished oceans, a record of life itself, written in crystal and stone. 4. The Salt Marl, distinctive red formations. The most striking thing about the Great Salt Range is not the white, it is the red. A deep, saturated crimson that coats the mountains like a skin, shifting toward burnt orange in the midday sun, darkening to almost black in the shadows of the ravines. Stand before an exposed cliff of this red rock, and you feel transported. Not to India, to Mars. The color is the same, that deep, ancient rust caused by iron oxide, the same mineral that paints the surface of the red planet. This red rock is called marl, a soft, clay-like stone that wraps around the salt deposits like a protective shell. It is crumbly in the dry season, cracking into a million dusty shards under the sun. But when the monsoon rains arrive, it transforms. The marl turns slick, scarlet, alive. It slides down the ravines in streams of red mud, staining the rivers of the Punjab a ghostly pink. And buried inside this red matrix, the salt hides, not in neat, orderly veins, but in enormous lens-shaped pods, massive pockets of white crystal embedded in the crimson earth like pale seeds buried inside the red flesh of a pomegranate. The marl does more than color the landscape, it protects the salt. Its dense, impermeable nature stops groundwater from seeping in and dissolving the mineral beneath. Without this red guardian, without this thick, rust-colored armor, the Great Salt Range would have washed into the Indian Ocean millions of years ago. The white and the red, ice and fire, a landscape of geological drama where the cool, crystalline sanctuary of salt is wrapped in the hot, ancient pulse of the earth. 5. Economic bounty, alum, petroleum, and gold of the range.
The salt is the crown jewel of the Punjab mountains, but it is not the only treasure. Beneath the surface, layered deep within the rock, the Great Salt Range holds a wealth so diverse it rivals the vaults of any empire. The first companion to salt is alum, a mineral found in the dark shales of the mountain's lower reaches, not beautiful to look at, not glamorous, but enormously valuable. Alum was the industrial workhorse of the Victorian age. It was used to tan leather, to dye textiles, to purify drinking water. To extract it, massive heaps of black shale were set alight in the open air, left to roast for months. The landscape around these fires turned volcanic, smoke and ash drifting across the valleys. The roasted earth was then soaked in water, boiled in great vats, and from that dark, bitter liquid, pale, translucent crystals slowly emerged, a chemical transformation from black rock to clear crystal. Now, go deeper. Beneath the salt marl, beneath the limestone, the range holds something older and darker: petroleum. Oil seeping through the cracks in the rock, oozing along the foothills in slow, viscous streams. Ancient travelers called these places burning springs. The oil would catch flame spontaneously in the dry air, flickering and hissing along the riverbanks. The smell of raw oil mingles with the salt air here, a thick, heavy scent, a reminder that beneath these mountains lies an ancient graveyard, prehistoric forests and seas compressed over millions of years into liquid energy. And then, the final treasure: gold. Not in great veins deep underground, but in the rivers. Tiny flakes, glittering fragments washed down from the hidden peaks by centuries of rain, carried along in the sandy beds of the Indus and the streams that carve through the range. For generations, local prospectors have worked these rivers. Patient men with wooden bowls, swirling the water, letting the sand drift away, watching the gold settle. Picture one of them now. A lone figure silhouetted against the red cliffs, the river running cold and clear before him, the bowl turning slowly in his weathered hands, a single flake of gold catching the light. Salt, alum, oil, gold. 4 treasures hidden in one mountain. The Great Salt Range was never just a source of one mineral. It was a treasury, a place where the earth itself seemed eager to give up its wealth to anyone patient enough to dig.